Hey everyone, welcome to another episode of the Coach's Corner University podcast. I am your host, Paul O'Need, and as usual, our podcast is brought to you by Coach's Corner University. Use code podcast300 to save $300 off of our education collective with over 200 hours of lecture content, continuing education, case studies, and more. We're also sponsored by TC Nutrition, Barefoot Shoes, and Bacon and Barbells. You can find links in the show notes to the discount codes there. But today is a very special podcast. Very rarely do I get to sit down with people whom I've followed for a very long time and who happen to live in the same city as me at the end of the day. Andre Benoit. Andre, welcome to the podcast.
Thank you very much. Thank you for inviting me.
Oh, it's my pleasure. So, for those of you who don't know who Andre Benoit is, Andre is a veteran in the strength and conditioning world with almost 40 years of experience working with Olympic professional athletes, executives, aspiring young athletes. He's a two-time Olympian in luge. I'm not going to name the dates because I don't want to age him. And now he's transitioned into education.
I'm proud of my age, buddy. I'm proud of my age.
Man, you've done it all. So maybe give a little bit of a rundown on like professional history, how you got, 40 years in strength and conditioning is a long time to summarize in a bio, but what has you sitting here today?
Because we met at the Swiss Symposium last weekend.
Simple as that. Cool.
Yeah, simple as that. No, well, I was always loved sport. Always loved sport. I did judo, a lot of judo, which I credit mostly for my athletic abilities. I think I can credit and gymnastics. I did gymnastics with the high school program I was with, but mostly judo is the one that I really think it made a difference in what I did. And I did a whole bunch of sports. I played a bit of lacrosse, a bit of football. Well, yeah, I don't know if I should mention that even because it was not much, but whatever. A little bit of football, tiny bit. A little bit of hockey. I was a goalie. Like I said, most of the sports I did that were organized sports was mostly judo and gymnastics. And always, I love cycling. Did some mountain biking in my days. In 1982, when I was 7. I was 19 in 82, and I cycled across Canada. So me and 5. You didn't know that.
I didn't.
4 friends. We took a flight, and no preparation. That's the thing. I mean, I have a lot of uncle stories, so I'll try to keep it.
No, this is what it's about. I want this.
But so no preparation at all, other than being physically active every day.
Yeah.
A friend of mine, they go, her and her brother and 2 other friends, they say, we want to do a cycling trip across Canada. We need 2 adults. And me, I was 19, so I was technically an adult.
Technically an adult. We both know no adults are 19 years old.
But we were the age, recognized.
Yeah.
My girlfriend was, and her brother needed us to go. So my girlfriend says, we're going. And I said, yeah, okay, sure, let's go. So I took this winter, saved money up, bought a bike, bought the equipment. Then the 24th of June, the Fête de la Saint-Jean-Baptiste, flew to Vancouver, and we biked back. 49 days of, it was probably, besides vacation with my family, like this was the best trip I've done in my life. Like it was unbelievable. Like there's a lot of stories just for that, but it was 49 days. We only stayed 5 days of the 49 in an indoor setting. The other one was always in our tents. We slept in graveyards. We slept in military base illegally. We slept, when I say military base, we jumped the fence.
Yeah, of course.
And we didn't go on the freaking base. We just were legally on. But the military guys came at night. And I was scared but all I heard them says, sorry, can we swear on this thing?
Because, yeah, of course.
Like that, the military guy swore. But he goes, I'll leave the fuckers here. They're fine. We'll come back in the morning. So
yeah.
It was like 2 a.m. I don't know what they were doing, but whatever. So they left us there. The next day, we packed everything up, left. But so we have tons of stories about that one. But unbelievable trip. And then and that trip really taught me a lot about my country, which is it was great. but also a lot about mental toughness. Like, because a lot of people are saying, "Oh, it must have been so hard physically." Physically, well, that's so hard. Like, I think we were ready, and to some
Yeah.
extent, except our ass was the first 13 days. The most painful things was our bum. It was so painful. We had problem. All five of us had problems sitting on picnic tables. Like, it would take 20 minutes in the morning to get up and finally sit on our bike. It was so painful. But after
Oh
the
my
first
God.
days, it was kind of fine.
Yeah.
But mentally, it was the toughest part, where you just pedal, 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 and the mountains. People say, "Oh, the mountains must have been so hard, no going up and down." Well, the mountains, you're going up, but you're going to come down because you come
Right.
up so high. Where the prairies, the wind was that was
Oh yeah, yeah.
that was tough. Like, the wind is because you don't know. Well, you know when it starts, but you don't know when it's going to end. And
Hmm.
there's a whole bunch of myth that, like, false information we're given. It's going to be easy. You're going to go from west to east. The predominant wind is that way. Big lie. We had to win our back 3 days out of 49.
Oh
The
my
rest was
God.
always on the side, on the face, whatever. And then they say, "Oh, the prairies, it's going to be so easy. You're gonna,
Like fly
cruise
through
with
it?
rain and all." The prairies are not flat. They're not
No.
flat. It's long, long freaking hills that go up forever, and you go. And I remember, you see the Regina, and you go, okay, we're about, from the because you get pretty good at measuring distance for a while.
Yeah, yeah.
And then we say, okay, we're about 2 hours, from Regina, from where we are. But then you go, and then also you take a left, and then it took us 6 hours to get to that stupid city. It was long. It was it was so long. Like, it's yeah, it was mentally, was really what was the hardest part. You really had to, bear down and
Hmm.
go for it. And then, after that, we arrived home. Everything was fine. And then 1984, was watching the Olympics. Another friend of mine called, and he goes, "Hey, Andre," she goes, "there's a," because I always loved luge. Like, I've watched luge in the 60s, and
Yeah.
I was born 1962.
Hmm.
So I'm whatever. Like, my brother is 6 years older than I am, so we both of us were always, fond of that sport, because they had, in those days, if you want to have a bit of a,
I'm gonna find a picture.
they had those big cones head,
Yeah.
big too, for aerodynamic stuff, and then it got all standardized at the end. But Eastern Blocs countries about, they had like these big cones. Just watch 1964 Olympics. You'll laugh.
Okay.
It's on the internet. But I was always interested by it. My brother and I used to make luge runs, or what we thought was luge runs, with turns, in the hill behind us. But every turn was basically a fucking ramp. Just jump. We had no engineer capacity. And then, anyway, so in 84, this friend of mine said, call. So I called Sports Canada. They said, "Hey, go to Sherbrooke. There's a club there." I went to Sherbrooke. It was Les Loutres du Québec. Les Loutres de Sherbrooke. It was a club. And I
Hmm.
started. Yeah, so I did summer provincial summer camps, and I was referred to a national summer camp. That's in 84. Long story short, I made the team, went to Europe. My first run ever was in Innsbruck, Austria.
Hmm.
And after my first run, I wanted to go home. I guess it would have, what the fuck, because another lie that was told to me in sports is that, luge on wheels and luge on ice, the same thing. No, it's not the same fucking thing.
No,
Not
it's
even
scary
close.
as
It's
fuck.
not even. You skid on ice. Anyway, you can get away with murder on your wheels in the summer, not on ice. On ice, the consequences of skipping steps and, making a mistakes, it's face first in the next curve, or you hit a wall, or whatever.
Yeah.
Um. So anyway, I learned quickly that people lie about sports.
I think people have this like preconceived notion as to
Yeah.
like
And then,
high
but
performance
anyway,
sports.
so and then I was doing singles for 2 years, from
Hmm.
82 to 86. Then in 86, I got paired up with a guy named Bob Gasper. He's an Albertan. He was, we were paired up because of our heights. He was taller, shorter. So the tall guy's on top, I go on the bottom, aerodynamic and stuff. And then I trained whatever I could from 84 to 88. I trained whatever I knew, which was wrong.
Mm-hmm.
And a guy told me this afterwards. You'll see who he was. But and then I injured my back in 87, and they wanted to fuse my L4, L5.
Okay.
What happened is that I was doing a squat, hurt with the belt. Afterwards, I've learned that it was everything that you could do wrong to learn the squatting. I did
Right.
with the coaches we had then, and then so I go down and hurt myself, rag the bar, couldn't move. I was seized up. Take X-rays, and in those days was 88 was right. So 87, 88 was the first Olympic Games in Canada, so we had a lot of money. And then we had a team doctor went to get X-rays and all that stuff, and then have a meeting with the head coach, the director of the luge program, and the surgeon, the doctor. And they go, "You lied to us." I go, "What?" I said, "You broke your back and never told us." I'm like, "I never broke my back ever." He goes, "Yes, you broke your back." And then he showed me the X-ray, and then what I have, you see my L4 vertebrae and the two transverse process. They're. I'm like, "Oh," and then all of a sudden I go, "Oh, I think I know when that happened." So when I was 12, I was doing stupid shit. If you're gonna do luge in life, you do stunts.
Yeah. Oh yeah, for sure. You have to be crazy to go down an ice hill head first.
I don't think crazy. I like to say you like calculated risk.
Okay, that's a nice way of saying it. Okay,
which could be crazy to some extent. But so I used to do at my house when I was younger. My room was at the last room down the hallway upstairs, and I would start running, slide on the carpet, land on the first step, and just fucking go as fast as I could down. And it used to drive my mom crazy. Anyway, one time I ran too fast, slid too much, and I went through the air, and I went like this. I was in the air, so I was, the stairs were below, and then I landed my L4 on the last step. So there's 8 steps. I landed, boom, and then I couldn't breathe, whatever. And I was smaller then, obviously 12. I was 12 years old. So when I landed, my ass did not touch the floor. It just all the impact was on my back.
Right.
Anyway, goes to the hospital, take X-ray. Doctor says he's fine. There's nothing broken. Go home. And my mom's a farm girl, so she didn't like going to the hospital for nothing. So anyway, we go back home with her. And me being me, 2 weeks later, I start doing this shit again. So I would land, and my mom would tell me, "Stop doing this." Anyway, so I did it again.
Yeah, of course.
Being too fast, I landed the same way. Boom! But this time it really hurt. But my mom, being my mom, she goes, we're not going to the hospital. You're going to stay here, get on the sofa, lay down, don't move, don't do nothing. So we didn't go to the hospital, but that's when I think I broke my back.
Right.
I have a spondylolisthesis, 25%, level 4. So it's I think 5% forward, whatever. And I did nothing about it. So for months it hurt like crazy.
Yep.
But I went through it, adapted, went in. But then that was a weakness that showed up on the squat.
Right.
They wanted to fuse my L4 L5 after the Olympics, and then that's 1987. Okay.
Yeah.
My uncle had that done, and he got better for 4 months, and it got worse. So it was worse than what he was before. And I'm thinking, man, I'm 23 years old. I'm not doing this. I didn't tell him this, but anyway, so 1988, the bobsleigh team hires this strength coach. And then since we're associated with the bobsleigh team, they say, "Well, you're going to be coaching the luge team." The delinquent. So because then the track team, the bobsleigh team, they're all track. Well, what we affectionately called their, track and field reject.
Yeah, of course. Yes.
They go there. I mean, but they're in all fairness, they're good athletes. They're more powerful. Anyway, I don't want to get too much in details, but they're really powerful. So the more power you have, usually the less speed you can use. So they're really good at bobsleigh. And so this guy comes in, and his name is Charles Poliquin, and does this evaluation that he used to do, which was a clap test, some movement with the arm, and then all we hear is next swearing and telling us we're useless. And And I remember thinking, who the fuck this guy? Who is that? That guy's that's got some anger
Yep.
issues. And but anyway, but he was right. Like he was, but never nobody ever told us, you're pathetic. He said it. You're fucking pathetic. You have no clue. And I'm like, oh god, buddy. But anyway, so I tell him about my back and my shoulder. At the time, I had an issue with my shoulder,
Mm-hmm.
and right away he goes, "Fuck, there's no operation, and like there's no way nobody's gonna operate on you." So, well, my back is pretty serious. He goes, "Fuck, we'll build tree trunks around your spine. It's gonna get strong. You won't need operation at all." So, okay, whatever.
Yeah, at that point, you're like, fuck it.
Yeah, and then they wanted to operate on my right shoulder because when I was 17, another old injury, I was, kind of fighting kind of a bit with this guy, and I was, had a bit of enough. So he had my arm behind me, and I grabbed him. I grabbed his shirt, and I fucking threw him above my body.
Mm-hmm.
Really, really cool. People will go, "Oh my god!" But fuck, I hurt my shoulder so bad, but didn't want to show that I hurt myself. So I'm
Of
like,
course.
yeah. But anyway, so since then I had issues with my shoulder, and then the doctor, they wanted to operate again on my shoulder just to shorten all the ligament because they said my ligaments were too loose.
Mm-hmm.
And Charles again said, "Fuck, there's no fucking way we're doing it." Anyway, he just with his usual non-politically correct stuff, he goes, "They're fucking idiots" and all that shit. Anyway, so I did all the external rotation shit that you can imagine.
Mm-hmm.
I restarted learning how to squats and deadlifts, like no weight, just the bar.
Mm-hmm.
And then you got to think though, this is 1988. Everybody's lifting, crazy. I'm training at the Bob Niven Training Center then in Calgary by the luge track.
Mm-hmm.
And it's just athletes, speed
Right.
skaters, cross country skiers, everybody's there. Anyway, so I'm there with just the bar and Charles over my case saying, "Hey, go center." He's coaching me, coaching everybody but me. And then anyway, so I started adding weight. Anyway, so in 1 month, my shoulders issues are gone, 100%
Mm-hmm.
gone. And in 2 months, my back issue, like I'm 95% good again. Like I've
Right.
got almost no pain. I'm back deadlifting and like heavy and squatting. But if you move like for after 2 months, I said that my back was 95%. But if you move another 4 or 5 months later, I did 400 and my personal best ever. I did 403 pounds deadlift, which for a luge guy, it was not that, like I was 174 then,
Mm-hmm.
maybe 170 actually. It was pretty good. For me, for luge, you don't need to do a crazy amount of weight. But anyway, so I was impressed, and I'm like, oh fuck! I said this guy. So I'm back again 2 months into the training. So this guy knows his shit.
Yeah.
He's vulgar and rude, but he knows his shit. So, but the thing is, I have to say though, with me and for the guys on the team, the luge team, he was always good. And that's the thing with Charles that people, if you were giving a maximum effort, are you really giving a true effort in training and wanting to be better? Charles
Mm-hmm.
that never screamed at you. Except if your technique was bad across the room, he would scream at you, but not scream at you like he's angry. He just wants you to correct your technique.
Right.
But but if you there and you kind of what we used to call a jacket Olympian, you want to
Mm-hmm.
go to the Olympics just for a jacket, that didn't go well at all. That was not good at all. But anyway, so I never really had any real issues with Charles. And if we did in the future after that, when we did, we solved it and it was done. It's over. But
Mm-hmm.
at that time, this is the summer of '89, so we're getting closer to the fall. Charles was saying he was doing all these teams now because they're all with him and he's being successful and all. So people hear about me and my back, and then they hear about my shoulder, and then others injuries in the bobsleigh world and the alpine ski world. And so now there's more and more team wants to be with him. And then he's falling behind a bit. And one day I tell Charles, I was like, me at the time was studying to be a pilot, by the way. So
Okay.
I was finishing my phys ed degree, my kinesiology degree, and then
Mm-hmm.
going to flying fixed wing or planes, and then go to helicopters.
Okay.
But anyway, so I tell him, I said, you should hire someone to help you with the program, right? Giving them one. And he goes, well, fuck.
Mm-hmm.
nobody wants to do this. Yeah. He goes, do you want to do it? I said, sure, I'll do it. So I was going to get some money, I said, sure. And then never went back to flying. I just kept on coaching people and training people. So I was an athlete, 89 to 92 still. And I was helping him out, learning on the field, like learning on the ground and doing stuff, assisting him and learning stuff. And then I just, I never thought I was going to be a strength conditioning coach, coaching NFL football, CFL guys, NHL guys, some actors, royalty, nothing ever. Like I thought I was going to be a pilot, fly planes, helicopters, and be happy. So
that's really funny. So my wife actually, when we met, she was in school to be a pilot and just coaching on the side.
Oh,
and then fell in love with coaching, and now she dropped out of pilot school and just coaches full time now.
For me, I think it was really because there's finally someone who was able to, in North America anyway, like I know in the Eastern Bloc it was already happening, but in North America, someone that could take systems and make sense out of it and how to put them together to make a difference with people. Whether your goal is to become a high performance athlete or become a high performance, what I call the client, like a everyday person, or just fixing people, making them more mobile, have less pain, a better quality of life, all that stuff. Those systems I've learned with him by doing them first, and then after that, understanding a bit more the reasoning behind it, or the logic of why you do that system. Well, you can apply that from high performance to,
right.
Gertrude, who's 60,
Gertrude.
who's doing whatever. It's all you have to do is adapt it to that person, and it works because the principle of the human body are the same whether you're a high performance athlete or just a mom or a dad at home.
That was one of the things that always drew me to Charles Poliquin. Like for me, coming up as a coach, I started coaching myself in 2007. And my first introduction in training was like obviously the typical like men's fitness, whatever. But as soon as I started diving into kinesiology and was in my human kinetics program at Ottawa U, it was all Charles Poliquin. It was, the theories and the systems that Poliquin adapted from those Eastern Bloc countries and brought over to North America. He was a true pioneer. And I wanted to ask you, you started coaching under him, I guess in 1988, 89. When did you transition into the role of his like right-hand man as the Poliquin group grew?
Well, then it was not the Poliquin group. It was a PICP, the
Okay.
Poliquin International Certification Program,
Okay.
which was really the original one. I would say 90, 90,
90?
91.
Okay.
And as my career ended as a athlete,
Mm-hmm.
I got more and more involved with helping him in his business, which was also helping me because that's when I opened my company. Was at the time was called Performance RM.
Mm-hmm.
So basically what happened is I was his right hand to some aspect, and then whatever he could not handle, either because it's too much or because he just did not like training those people, he would just send them to me. And then I made my own connection, of course, but
Of course, yeah.
mostly, like honestly, it was mostly his stuff that I would do. My first gig he gave me was the Alberta's Alpine ski team,
Okay.
and that's when I learned how to write programs. Really, so that was 1990, I believe, 91. And so I always remember that because it's it's like, so basically Charles says, this is the team, do the evaluation. I showed, we had an evaluation that we do that mostly at the time it was mostly just movement pattern. Okay, so like all that stuff. So I did, and I wrote the program. He goes, you write the program, I look at them and then I'll give you feedback. Well, his feedback.
Yeah.
You'll see. And then once I'm okay with it, then you give it to the team. So the first program I write, So he has a sheet. So I give him the program because in those days there's no software, so it was all written by hand.
Right.
Or it was written, you had this. You could make the squares and all that stuff, but then you had to write by hand inside the squares the name of the exercise.
Yeah.
It was a long time ago. Anyway, so he looked at the program and then he goes, walked away, threw my program on the ground, walked away. I'm like, wow, what's your feedback? He says, that's your feedback. You're better than this. And he walked. I'm like, what the fuck? So I grab it, I look at it, I read the book. And anyway, it took a while, but it took about 4 times before second time I gave him a thing. He had a pen, I can't remember whatever, and he just circled things but big circles. Like he had so many things circled. It was like the whole fucking program was circled. He goes, change this. You're better than this. I'm like, what the hell? I said, you got to give me a bit more. He goes, look at this. Look. And then he said, look at the system you use. I'm like, what the fuck? So I look at the system and I read more. But then you have to understand, like at that time, he already had some stuff that he had written.
Right.
As much. I had to go research, and that's at the library, not on the internet, because there's no internet.
Right. Yeah.
People, so it was a long process. It's like, type training system for beginners. Fucking you have the list. But then it was like, okay, so read the books and fucking when I those days I had the Arnold, the famous, the one and only Arnold book, and then Bill Pearl and all the old guys. And so okay, I'll look, and then he gave me some stuff that from a guy I never heard before, but I would hear about many times after is Dietmar Schmidblacker. So you had some stuff from him that it was printed on a sheet that was so hard to read because it was photocopied 50 times. Anyway, so I read this and that's how I learned. I learned really by him throwing shit on the ground and going, you're better than this. You're better than this. I'm like, okay.
That's how I learned too, man. Like I look at how.
Yeah, you learn with the internet though, which is a bit equal.
But not initially. So one of the things that I did was like I got really when I get obsessive about things. So if there's something I want to learn and I know that there's a resource like someone else who's done a lot of work on that subject,
Yeah.
I'll go read whatever they wrote and then I'll look at whatever they researched to write what they wrote and then I'll go research the same research. That's one of the things that I'll always say, like, when I was really into powerlifting and West Side Barbell, I was like, cool, West Side Barbell is a great system, but I want to know what books Louis read to write the West Side Barbell method. So I remember, I went to Elite FTS and I downloaded all of the Russian manuals I possibly could.
Yeah.
I printed them out. I still have them in the basement, printed them out and I bound them at Staples and, anything from, Buddy Morrison, James Smith, and all of Poliquin's books. I printed them out and read them all and marked them up. And I think that's the big disconnect these days with young coaches is they'll just go read Louis Simmons and think they know all the background there. It's like, no, but that's an adaptation of the information that they read. You might read that same information and completely adapt it differently. And that was one of the things that I found so interesting. Like when I was talking to Justin Kavanaugh about you, and he's like, yeah, a lot of what Andre's research led to is what Poliquin then grew to become. So I think as much as you were frustrated that he just kept throwing your paper on the floor, that made you a better coach because it forced you to look deeper into the thing and even come up with your own ideas.
Yeah. And I don't want people to think that he was a jerk. I mean, he was acting like one, but there was still a friendship. Like he was doing it on purpose to some extent.
Of course. Yeah.
And that's when I would start talking back to him. But he would not disrespectfully, but he would take it from me. And then the guy who would take it from is Clark Flynn, because we're older friends, But I would say, I would make comments that would be, call him jerk and asshole once in a while, but it was always in a friendship way, not disrespect. Right. So, but yeah, you're right. Like I've learned, I was truly had my feet on the ground, and I've learned. But again, it's the same thing as any. Like if you're going to be good at an activity or a sport or any type of hobby or whatever, you have to do it. You have to
Of course. Yeah.
I was good at cycling. And then because after I cycled across Canada, I did some mountain biking. When the mountain bike came out, because when I did across Canada, there was no mountain bike; it didn't exist yet. That's how old I am. Later in my years, when I was in my 30s, when I stopped luging, I started doing mountain biking, and people were saying, "Fuck, you're so good." No, you haven't trained. So, well, fuck, I haven't trained for cycling, but I know how to bike because I biked a lot in my life. I had my
Right.
first car at 27. I couldn't afford a car before that.
Oh
So I was
wow.
biking everything, everywhere. I was biking summer and winter. Biking. I had screws in my tires. I know you learn to put screws in the knobbies, whatever. Like it just
That's
yeah.
what someone who's not from Canada will not understand that reference at all, which is
So
so funny.
so I biked a lot, not
Hmm.
to train necessarily, but when I started mountain biking, doing races, or I did a few mountain bikes race. I did a team 24 hour of adrenaline once. No, it wasn't bad. I was not the best, but I was not the worst. I mean, I was good because I trained strength training with Charles, and I biked a lot, so it transferred. But you're right, like to be able to write coach and write program and coach, I did it, and I'm fairly good at it because I've done it. Like I've been sore, I've
Hmm.
been I trained hard enough that my soreness is great enough that I have problem walking or scratching my nose. And I've done also train the nervous system hard enough that you shake. I'm not saying everybody should do that, but I've done it. So when I train people, I see the signs and I see if they're exaggerating or they're right on target, and I can say, okay, you know what? Which is Charles did that a lot to us. He trained us hard, but if let's say we come one day and we cannot repeat the effort, or he sees we're not, our nervous system is down, it can't wake up. If you want, he would say, pack your things, go home, get up, come back tomorrow. You're not rested. That's
Hmm.
something. Yeah, he trained you hard, but he also allowed you to. He was able to gauge you and say, okay, you're pathetic today. Go home and don't come back. Just come back. Or sometimes he would say to us, like I've heard him say me or other like bobsleigh team or speed skating, whatever it was. Okay, you need just go home 3 days. Take 3 days, go home, come back after 3 days. I don't want to see you here.
Hmm.
So
That's an important thing to note because I'm very big on talking about training intensity because especially now, like I've seen both sides because I came up in this generation of, you know, very hard nosed, high intensity, like you train until you die and then you rest and then you come back. And now the tendency is very much to undertrain. And people don't like they're training to reps in reserve, but they don't know how many reps in reserve because they've never actually found zero reps in reserve and all this sort of stuff. And I think, the quest for what's optimal has kind of come at the expense of training intensity. But there are two sides to that coin. There are times where you definitely need to pull back. And when you're dealing with sports performance, understanding the implication of central nervous system fatigue, and if you are training that central nervous system, there's only so much gas in the tank. Like, talk a little bit about,
but
the strategies with that. So go ahead. Yeah.
I'll interrupt you here. Yeah, there's two things. There's only so much gas in the tank, yes. But the other problem is that the tank, you can only fill up that tank so quick.
Amen. Yep.
And that's the people say, well, I rested. Well, yeah, if you rested, but you can only fill up your tank, but you need 5 days to fill that tank up, and you need a full tank to be able to do your training or your event or whatever it is. Well, then you're still under rested.
Right.
So this is now. Having said that, you're you're right. I think the more I like what I see now, it's not new, but I think it's more present. Is that people, they never truly. Okay, let me set back here because I got
Hmm.
with the avenue on the internet. Again, there's great things, but there's some fucking horrible things with this. So people, they look at the internet. Fuck, I'll do this. So they do it, but they don't get coached ever.
Hmm.
They have a perceived exhaustion that, depending on your and that I'm saying this, like, depending on how you were brought up and how much challenge you had in your life, whether it's physical or emotional, whatever, well, your perception of, I worked hard, well, it's going to be, it'll depend.
Right.
So before I met Charles, I thought I was working hard. And I met Charles, and the whole team, even the people that were like, not really into whatever, that were not the hardest worker, they realized, holy fuck, we didn't. Like, I thought I was a good athlete when I met Charles, and I was not. I was okay. Once you realize, holy fuck, I can really push myself a lot more than I thought. Okay. Then yes, we were pushed to a limit, but then when he saw that we understood, okay, this is pushing hard now. Now I'm going to give you a break because you get it. Now, most of us got it, but a lot of people didn't get it. They were so, because they couldn't push themselves there for whatever reason. Like, I'm not gonna. It didn't make them bad people. It didn't make them. But in the sport of luge or bobsleigh or cross country skiing, you have to be able. Like cross country skiing, I think is crazy. You got to biathlon.
It's so hard.
You gotta push to limit, and you got to suffer. But again, it's mind over body. Not everybody can do that. Some of us can. I can. Now, if you ask me now, could you push as hard as you did when you were in your 20s and 30s? No. But not because I'm not capable of it. I just don't want to. Like, I'm fucking 62 and I've done this. Like, I've done all that shit. Now, if I need to put it that way because I need to save my wife or my kids, oh fuck, I'll go above and beyond. I'll go mind over body, even if it kills me, literally. I'll do it. But that's not like, that's why I try to teach my kids I don't get in this situation. But in all seriousness, like, this pushing yourself is something you learn. One thing that Charles said one day, not necessarily to me, but I heard him say it. He goes, "Listen, fucker, you have to learn to lift and learn to lift heavy. You're not born with it. You have to learn it."
Yep. It's a skill.
And then me in my courses, I go beyond that. I said, I always tell people, as a coach, what's your first thing? What's your first job with a new client you never saw? And they say, well, make them healthy, give them mobility. No, it's the first job is teach them how to move. That's your first job. Okay. Teach them how to move. Once they know how to do the movement, then you load the movement and you teach them how to lift weights. And once they know how to lift weights and control the body with that resistance, then you teach them how to lift fucking heavy. But it's a learning process. So a lot of coaches online, not all of them, but a lot
You
of
don't have to worry about being contradictory.
but I'm just saying, I understand. But a lot of people online, I feel, never got pushed to their true limit. So therefore, it's hard to push your clients to their true limit. Either you're going to go too low or too high. That happens too, so that's why I have courses online, okay, on my website, and that's why I don't, even though the content is good, I'm not there to see you move in the gym, and that is so important because I cannot push you because all you see is me talking about rep range or movement or training systems or whatever it is, what I do, what I did, and what Charles is doing, all that stuff. But I'm not in the gym to teach you this. And I think it's the same thing with other people. If you take any courses with anybody in person, you'll gain way more if they're competent, of course, that you would have with an online course. So, having said that, in the 90s, when I was doing my own courses and early 2000, so mostly early 2000, one time I remember I was in Australia, okay, and I'm teaching. It was my strength academy. It's in those days it was 5 days, and it was fine those days because people were not scared of investing in themselves, So it was a 5 day. You train twice a day, so you would be coached by me over 10 workouts. Okay. And I would coach you guys and push you. So there's one guy, Reese, he's there and he's a big boy. He's strong, not super massive, but he's strong. And I see him do so we're doing that day, it's 8 sets. It's 8 sets. So it's called step training. So 8, 8, 6, 6, 4, 4, 2, 2. So it's all eight sets,
Okay.
and he's at the 4 rep. And so I know he's got 3 sets left. And then I go and I see him move and I go, Reese, the warm up is over. Lift some weights. And he goes, well, I'm lifting weights. And no, this is way too easy. He goes, why? I said, because the tempo is a 4010 and you're coming up on a 1 second. On your 5th set, on your last 2 reps of your 5th sets, it's 1 second's up. He goes, wow. I said, well, no, there's no way. I'm going to digress here, but no, the eccentric tempo that's written in stone. Like if it's a 4 eccentric, it's 4. But the concentric is going to change. It's going to be a 1. But by the time you're, toward the end of your set or the end of your sets, you get toward the end of the workout,
Right.
it's a 2 or 3 or maybe a 4. And then that's all you know. So I can tell you right now that you're not lifting close to what you can lift, because you're coming up on a 1 second. So add 5 kilos aside. He goes, wow, you're crazy. I said, add 5 kilos. And then he did it.
Mm-hmm.
And then we added more and we added more. I believe we added total close to 10 or 11 kilos each side. So 20 kilos. And then you could see how he was like, oh my God. And then, after in my class, I always ask people, what you learned today and all that stuff. What did you learn the last 2 hours? And so I asked this question, and Reese comes up. He goes, well, I've learned that I've last, 6 years of my life, I haven't pushed myself. So it's okay. You learn it now. But that's why you need someone. And I know he was training with other people, and that's what he asked. He goes, well, how come? I don't understand how come people don't help me. So, well, because they don't. No, are they your coach? If you're working with them, but you're the one with you're the senior guy, it's really rare they're going to say, "Hey, Reese, you're slacking off. Fucking put some weights on." Because
Right.
they need the outside that has nothing to lose,
Yeah.
and then tells you, and then you listen.
One of the things that I've heard Dave Tate speak about a lot is this concept of anchoring yourself. So, if you want to talk about effort level, so you talked about concentric speed. So obviously, as you accumulate fatigue over, within a set or within a series of sets, you're just going to have accumulated fatigue where you won't be able to move the weight as fast. But if you don't even know how slow you can move, right? Like how slow can you move under heavy loads? You really don't know what that 10 out of 10 effort is. You really don't know what that 0 reps in reserve is.
And you got to go to failure once in a while.
Exactly. You have to know what failure is in order to know what 1 rep short of failure is. And I agree with you is that a lot of the training systems that you see nowadays are rooted in something that is unknown. It's like, yeah, you're going to train at an 8 RPE. It's like, well, okay, listen, I've squatted 800 pounds. Everything from 600 to 800 is a 10 out of 10 RPE. It feels awful. So then how do I anchor that in my mind to what is this going to look like, feel like, how much weight can I load on this? Like I remember I was training at the gym. This is probably a year ago. And I made a jump from 684 to 771. That was my jump. I did nothing in between. And the owner of the gym was like, "What the fuck is wrong with you?" I'm like, "Well, I knew that 683 moved like this, and I knew that my goal was 771, and I didn't need any more warm-ups to get to that, so I hit that and then I left."
Yeah.
And it's because I had anchored in my mind of, well, if 683 feels like this, I know 771 is going to feel like this.
And the reason I'm laughing is not because I'm laughing. Those are weights that are totally alienated to me. Like I've never, I've seen people lift it, but me, there's no way. Like my biggest, was it a squat or a deadlift? Was it deadlift you
That
talking
was a
about?
squat.
A squat. Fuck. You see, there you go. So my biggest deadlift ever is 430 or whatever it was, and my biggest squats ever is I think is 305. I think it's weak. but I could chin up a house. But but that's why I laugh. But you're right though. You need to go. Like when I coach, people ask me, well, you can't go to failure all the time. I said, well, you can. Me, I go to technical or strength failure. That's what I strive for my clients, whether you're athletes or everyday people. It's technical failure or strength failure, but it's going to be a failure. Now I'm training my son right now, and it's like a challenge. I thought it was going to be a bit hard, but actually I love it. I really enjoy coaching Nash because he's doing well. He's learning, but I explained to him, I said, he goes, well, I should do some dumbbells. I said, Nash, I said, we're training your weakest link. And right now your weakest link is your muscle that are trying to, on a split squats, for example,
Mm-hmm.
are the weakest ones for you right now are the one that are trying to keep your knees in line with your toes. You're not all over, you're not losing balance. All of this we have to train. And then when you're ready, then I'll put some weight on. But I always tell him, and he gets it. He goes, okay. He doesn't argue, which is amazing. He doesn't argue, he goes, yes, that, yes, that. He goes, yes. So it's the same way I did with all my moms and my dads and people that are untrained, young kids that want to, in the past, you got to build the biggest base of your pyramid
Mm-hmm.
to be able to build that pyramid as high as possible.
Yep.
If you skip some step you can skip, you build maybe one area of the pyramid, but eventually you're going to have to fucking lay down the base of the other side because otherwise
Mm-hmm.
you're not going to end up with a pyramid. So I know it's an image, but that's probably the best way I can put it in. Like you got to build the biggest base possible to build on.
Well, I mean, but that's one of the things you mentioned earlier is that these systems that apply at the lowest level, whether you're coaching your son or, a Gen Pop client, they also apply at the highest level. So I mentioned, squatting over 800 pounds. My off seasons, I never lifted over 500 because I was trying to build the base of my pyramid as
Yeah.
big as possible and accumulate as much fitness as I could so that I could, like, the wider the base, the higher the peak. That's the way I always looked at it. One of the things I wanted to ask you, as you progressed in your career, obviously there was the partnership with Charles and the Poliquin, with PCIP and then with Poliquin Group. What was ultimately, did you approach any of this with a career goal, or was just I'm having a great time coaching, I'm having a great time learning, and I'm having a great time working with great people?
To be honest, like this might disappoint a lot of people, but I was really going with the flow. Like my sales were up, I was on my boat, I'm going. So I wasn't sure where I was going, but I knew I was. Did I have any hope to go back to flying? No, I was not gonna be a pilot, which was fine. Like that's not a big deal. But I enjoyed making a difference, and that's what kept me in. And that's what I was gaining from Charles. I was gaining tons of knowledge about making a difference in somebody's life, like a tangible difference. You know, at the beginning of my career as a coach, yes, for sure, like it was awesome to coach athletes. But as the more athletes you coach, some of them are high maintenance, yes, but it's one of the easiest job in the world because they're self motivated. You don't have to be a
Yeah.
cheerleader. You don't have to go. "Gah, gah, gah." Where if you have my biggest challenges in my life were Eddie Podovinsky when he blew his knee up and they brought him to me and they said, okay, you got to fix his knee. And that was 1997 before the 98 Olympic Games in Nagano. And I was like, oh my God. He came to see me in March, I believe. They want him back in September. But that's a podcast in itself. But with the system
Oh,
that,
we're going to do more. Don't you worry, Andre.
but it's not a system I invented, okay? But with the calculated aggression of my intervention,
Mm-hmm.
he was back skiing in July, and he went to New Zealand for glacier training, and the guys were blown away. But I'm not going to take all the credit. Credit
Mm-hmm.
number one is Eddie. He fucking listened to me. He did the training, put the effort, and he wanted to be. That's one thing. He wanted to be back on his skis way more than I wanted him to be back on his skis.
Right.
That's right now. It was. challenging for me as far as a strength coach to go, okay, how can I get this guy securely back on his skis that he doesn't blow up his knees the first or second race, you know?
Mm-hmm.
So, and I succeeded. Like I must say, this was, I tapped myself on the back. I'm 62 now and I can say I'm good, you know? In the past I always was humble and stuff, but I'm still humble, but that was a fucking great job. Another great job I have had in my life is Regan Lauscher. She was a luge athlete. People kind of, like, I'm making a long story short, but people kind of uh, not abandoned her, but gave up on her. I'm like, but, she was not gifted.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, as a general population, she's gifted, but as an athlete in luge, she was not. Didn't have the most powerful. Didn't have, but she had the fucking lion's heart. Like, she was a hard worker.
Mm-hmm.
And I said, I think we can do something with it. Okay. And sure enough, she was our first, not just because of me, but because I didn't give up on her. And at one time I kicked her off the team and she called me all the names, all the names,
Mm-hmm.
all the swears you can imagine. She was angry, but I stayed home and I trained with her. She got stronger. And then I built her up really well and she became stronger mentally, I believe, and she got good support and everything. And then she ended up being the first woman to win a medal ever for Canada. So for
That's
me,
fucking cool, man.
part of that success. I'm not taking 100%, but I'll take at least 50 or maybe 40.
Well, I always joke. I always joke because, like,
The
you know,
sled is important and everything, but she had the determination. That's for me. I'm always grateful for her. Like, I'm so happy she was in my path. Like, it was fun.
Mhm.
Now, I'm not any other athletes. I'm not putting them down. They're all success, but these are the one that kind of stick out. Okay.
Yeah, we all have those over the years. The ones that like just stick out more than any other. Like, I have one that in my career I had a receiver. He played for Queens with me when I was there, and his best 40 time was like a 5'1". He's a 6'5" receiver, big boy. And people are like, yeah, but he's got great hands, but he's slow. He's slow and he's weak. He can't block. We got him ready for the combine. He ran a 4.64, got drafted, played a couple of years for Ottawa and Montreal. So, like, that for me was a big win because this is a kid who worked hard, but everyone wrote him off.
Yeah, I know, and it's something. Yeah, I know, I get it. Yeah, but they also that. Yeah, but another story is with Lindsay Alcock. Again, same thing. She was a skeleton girl,
Mhm.
and with training, everything from her, like, she became, like, she had the World Cup overall winner in 2003, I believe. I could be wrong on the dates. Sorry, but anyway, around there. And another success, but one of my biggest success is a lady who came to see me with excruciating back pain. Okay. And
Mhm.
to the point where she could not walk more than 15, 20 feet without having to sit down. That's how
Oof.
the back was. Okay. Now, she's not an athlete.
Mhm.
You won't be on TV.
Right.
And probably the first time you hear about this is now me telling you. But this lady went from that to be able to go back hiking, go back, have a full life almost. And
Mhm.
I remember one time she called me. She goes, Andre, she goes, I cannot thank you enough. She goes, I was able to sleep in a hotel room for a week without any back pain. I've I haven't had that in years.
I can't do that.
So, I know, but I'm just saying that. But that for me is hard
For
because we had
sure.
to start, buddy. We started with the freaking bird thing, and then all the stupid. No, I'm not laughing at that. Those are important, but that's how low we had.
It's just the fact that you called it the bird thing that killed
Oh,
me.
no, but I can't remember the name right now, the real name. But
The bird dog.
bird
Yeah,
dog.
yeah.
Oh, there you go. Bird dog. All those things, that we have to go back to the basics of basics of basics. And the
Mhm.
people she would have seen before me, they were doing right away, oh, there's deadlift and squat. I'm like, oh, fuck, hold on. Like, it's just, yeah, we need strength, but first we need her to be able to control her freaking body. Because right now
Yeah.
she can't even stabilize in a standing position and sometimes seated. So anyway, so those are success. Those are true success that I really, really were difficult for me to solve. Now, if
Mhm.
you have any, like I got my NHL players, we're Nolan Baumgartner, Scott Ferguson, Jesse Wallen, whatever. All those guys that I've done, and they became, for me, we achieved their goals and everything. Those are great success too. But to have a hockey player become better hockey player, or a woman who cannot walk for 15 feet,
Mhm.
walk and being okay with low back, that's more significant for her anyway.
It is, and that was one of the things that I've been very, very fortunate in my career, especially early on, where I had no exposure to Gen Pop. Like I did personal training for maybe 6 months, and then after that, it was all CFL players. And
Mm.
I transitioned. I was working in the NCAA for 4 years, and then in the CIS for a year, and then it was like all of a sudden I come out. I'm like, am I going to be able to have as much fun coaching normal people as I did coaching athletes? But then realizing that, for example, on the nutrition side, you help a mother manage her nutrition, lose weight, and then teaches her young daughter how to eat in a sustainable manner, and her
Mm.
whole family gets healthier. You're like, oh, that's way better of a win than helping some kid drop, zero point 0.1 on his 40 time, or add 3 reps to his 225 bench test.
But it's differently. It's differently. It's a different success. And I'm not, like I said, I don't want. I want to make sure that for all, if any athletes I coached in the past are watching this, like I don't put it down. It's just that it's not because of them. It's
Mhm.
easy to coach because they're
Yeah.
self motivated.
Right.
When you take someone who's never trained, never pushed themselves, and you have to start from literally zero, 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 and then you have to be more of a cheerleader, a bit more of a what I would call a weekend psychiatrist,
Yeah.
because you got to go in and you got to work on there because nobody. That's a now again we're opening another can of worm here, but they never talk to themselves positively, or
Yeah.
that's a huge. I think it's a huge. In French, we're saying fléau. Like it's a huge problem with young kids, my kids included, and me when I was young also.
Me too. Yeah.
Like when I used to coach, I used to say to my athletes, said, when's the last time you said good job to yourself? Fucking nobody raised their hand. I'm like, oh, okay. So that's when and that's really important. But anyway, now we're digressing. But what I meant to say is that it's something that it's different challenges. And the one when you start from zero sometimes is much harder. And then you have the other end where you have an athlete who's
Mhm.
trained, is a different challenge, trained the wrong way. And now they are totally ingrained in their ways. And then you got to change that little by little. Hey, well,
Mhm.
this look, okay, 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 okay. Now, I had a football player, CFL. I won't mention his name because I don't want to. But he had a tendonitis in his knee for 2 years.
Mhm.
2 years. I said, what do they do? He goes, well, I said, what do you do when you play? He goes, oh, they shoot me with cortisone. I'm like, holy fuck. Okay. So, yeah. Anyway, so me, I took him back and then used him. His lift was squatting. So I took him off the squats. I did split squats, which was a battle. It was a battle. You know, just
Mhm.
long story short, that after that summer, his tendonitis was gone. His knee was strong. He played the whole season. Okay, this whole season, no injuries. He called me at the end of the season. He goes, "Hey, Andre," he goes, "I just want to tell you," I said, "my first season in my life that I have no serious injuries.
Mhm.
Not just because of me, once again, but he was truly stronger." And that it took me a while, but he realized that squats and deadlifts are not the end all be all of everything. Again, once again, we had to take him back to the basics, build on the fucking, repave the basement of the pyramid,
Mhm.
and fucking go up. Okay. And then, but the funniest thing is, then I get a call from a friend of mine, Matt, and he goes, "Hey Andre," he goes, "I ran into this football player who was he wanted me to do his training." And I said, "Oh," I said, "Okay." He goes, "But I asked him, I said, who was your best trainer ever?" And he says, "Well, Andre Benoit." So Matt knows. He goes, "Really?" He goes, "Why don't you go back with him?" "Well, he doesn't believe in squats, and he's a bit expensive." And so I was not, just to say, I was $95 an hour then. Okay, so
Okay.
anyway, so it was very interesting because he wanted to go back to his old ways. I think, and I was not hurt. I had other
No.
clients, but it was very interesting that how much you want to go back to. So I said, Matt, I said, "We'll take him. Just make sure he does his fucking split squats once in a while. I know he loves squats and his deadlifts and all, and he needs to do them. He was ready to do them then, but
Right.
so instead of me at 95, you got Matt at 90.
Great. Listen, Andre, I want to be
Okay, that's good.
I want to be sensitive to your time, and I listen. I brought you on because I wanted to do this often. Because one of the things that I wanted to intro this at the beginning, but we kind of got into the conversation. One of the things that I find to be a disservice is the lack of attention paid to those who paved the way. And you're someone who's been doing this for a long time at a very high level, and who doesn't get the notoriety and the recognition that he deserves for what he's contributed to the industry. And, one of the things that I was hoping is, you would continue to grace us with these uncle stories and dive into the history and what's the things that have led to where we are today that you had a huge part in. So I'm hoping that we could do this again very, very soon.
For sure. And did you have one question you want me to answer today? Like
No, I
one?
just want to hear you talk, brother.
Okay. Go ahead.
Listen, there's a few topics that I do want to dive into on a separate podcast. The one of them being nutrition, because there are a lot of things that the Poliquin group, as a whole, yourself included, kind of shifted in terms of the approach to nutrition and supplements. And then the other one was, how
Just
you
as a
guys.
just as
Yeah.
a just clarification again, I was never with the Paul. We have to make that clear. Is I was never with the
Okay.
Polygon group when it became from PICP to Polygon group. Like I was gone already. So after
Okay.
that
All
was
right.
their world. Before that, that was me, John Connor, Owen Lacey. We did all we redid all the courses.
Mm-hmm.
We're the three that made. Well, that's why Charles brought me back in 2007. Is to He says I need consistency because I don't know if you took course from him. You could take level one in Ireland and level one in Tampa, and then there's fucking two different things. So
Ah,
so he hired me in 2007 to standardize everything. And that's what I did with John, and then I became the head
gotcha.
teacher.
Okay. Well,
Yeah,
definitely, I want to do a podcast on nutrition and supplements, and the other one I want to do a podcast on the different protocols with strength training, like the wave loading, the step loading, stuff like that. I definitely want to dive into that a little bit more. So
nutrition will be
listen,
15 minutes.
okay, maybe we'll do both together.
Yep.
All
It
right,
won't be
sounds good,
long.
Andre. I listen. I appreciate you joining me. We'll get another one booked. I'll have links to where everyone can find Andre and his courses in the show notes. So please make sure to like, share, subscribe, ring the bell for notifications, and we'll catch you on the next one.
I'll
Thanks,
just
Andre.
plug
Yeah,
in my
absolutely,
if people want to contact me, it's ccsclearning@gmail.com,
absolutely.
or they can go on my website. It's very basic, no nonsense. It's basic, but cdncsr.com. That's
Hmm.
my courses. It's basic. Okay. It's nothing fancy, just like me. Basic, nothing sexy, nothing fancy, but it works.
I will have links to where everyone can find those in the show notes. Thank you, Andre.
Take care. Bye.
Bye.